Hello and welcome back. So let's put my video on. Hi and welcome back. We are almost there. This is session 9. We're now looking at adapting or adapt the contributions to discussions to suit audience, the purpose and medium. So you can see on here when you're logged in, you've got a couple of slides to go through, and we'll have a look at those shortly. So let's look at how we adapt and contribute. And as we see quite beautifully written here, crafting messages for every audience. So here, few learning outcomes. You can see we've got about adapting and contributing towards the audience, understanding the audience, tailoring your messages, using the right medium, visual aids, humour and storytelling. On the right hand side, looking at metaphors, non-verbal, empathy, and putting it all together. So there's quite a lot in which we're going to cover in this next session. So let's just start off with adapting and contributions to suit your audience. So if you have to give a presentation or had a conversation with someone, you only feel like they've just weren't getting it, it's frustrating. And that's because there's a connection required, and that connection isn't just the verbal language, it's the body language. And we know through the charts and graphs it's 55% through body language and the rest through verbal, etc. But what if I told you you had the power to change that? And we absolutely have the power to read a room and understand what's going on. So by adapting your contributions to suit your audience, you can ensure that your message is not only heard, but understood and remembered. Whether you're giving a formal presentation, whether you're thinking about having an informal discussion or communicating online, understanding your audience and tailoring your message to their needs and interests and knowledge and levels will ensure that you have effective communication. So we start off by understanding your audience. Now in teaching and learning, we call this a class profile. And in that class profile, we have an idea about people's backgrounds, their experiences, their level, their knowledge, their understanding. And that helps us to prepare sessions and lessons to meet individual needs. But from this point, understanding your audience is crucial because it allows you to contribute to suit their needs and their interests. So understanding the WIFM, what's in it for me, will make sure that you have the right level of knowledge that you need for going into a presentation. And by gathering information about your audience, you can tailor your message to have a much stronger impact. So for example, let's say you were going to give a presentation on climate change, and if you knew you had some protesters in the room, you might want to really talk about the power of protest and freedom of speech. But equally, if you had some non-believers in the room, you might not want to necessarily go for the hard push, but you might want to go for the science and the evidence. So tailoring it to meet the needs is where you need to be. So there are several ways to gather information about your audience, such as a survey, analysing the demographics of where they come from, where they live, observing their behaviours. You can also use social media, online forums to gain an insight into the audience in which you're going to be working with. So ultimately, we have to adapt to different situations. We call this the chameleon effect. You know, you should be able to blend in and work wherever you need to. And I think the art of communication is you're in the middle, you're able to scale up, you're able to articulate yourself well, you're able to talk and present on a much higher level, but equally you can scale down, so you're able to get dirty and gritty, you're able to normalize, and you're able to pass on information in a way which is informal. And we have formal and informal ways. So adapting your contribution to different situations is crucial for effective communication. When it comes to a formalized presentation, it's important to be well prepared and organized. Make sure you have clear structure and rehearse. And that's why we always do a session plan or a pen picture of what it is we're going to do. The phrase planning to fail. No, failure to plan is planning to fail. Get the right metaphor, because I know we'll be doing metaphors in a minute. So make sure you have a clear structure and rehearse your presentation beforehand. When presenting to a group of colleagues, it's an informal when you're looking to present to a group of colleagues in an informal setting, try to engage them in conversation rather than delivering this monologue. And when I do these presentations, I find it really frustrating because it is me just kind of lecturing, if you like. I'm just talking to the screen, reading, and it can become very monologue-y, in other words, one tone. So I try to use my body language and my facial expressions to have peaks and valleys, ups and downs in the conversation. And when you're having a conversation with friends and colleagues, you can do that. You can pick those peaks and valleys. You can find when you can bring the energy up in the room and bring the energy down or into a conversation. And when communicating online, be mindful of the medium that you're using. So when we talk about medium, we talk about the tools, the resources. So for example, is your internet connection good? Does it get stuck? Is it a bit sticky? Are you like that? Because that doesn't work. You know, have you got a good microphone? Is it clear and concise? So just think about what it is you're going to do. Equally, think about the environment behind you. There have been many times when I've done presentations and all of a sudden my child comes bobbing along or the dog comes in, which can be very frustrating and off-putting for people. So do think about your environment. And equally think about your dress code. There are many presentations that I have done as a teacher, and I've had students turn up and they think it's okay to sit there in their pajamas. Whilst it's lovely to do training online, we've got to think about, you know, adapting to situations, and we still have to think about online etiquettes as well. So in an informal presentation, it's important to remain your professional demeanor. So that's the way that you're projecting. So kind of that solar position, sitting back, leaning nice and forward, nice gentle body languages, lots of nodding, lots of smiling, lots of repeating back what's being said to you to show those active listening skills. And it's important to think about your body language. So how much can people see? I always think it's nice to kind of sit slightly to the side with your legs crossed. If you are a fidgeter, it's nice just to either hold your hands on your lap, or if you're an expressive person, I use my hands to kind of reinforce some of the things that I'm trying to say. It just happens naturally. But be mindful of cultural differences. So I have some friends that I work with and they're very like, yes, you must do this. Yes, you must do that. And it comes across as really aggressive. So it's nice to say to people, look, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. You know, nice, soft, gentle hand movements. But if we're going, it does come across a bit aggressive. So just think about how you're going to use your body language. Equally, just make sure that you're using concise language, avoid jargon and technical terms that's unfamiliar to the audience. So tailoring your message is about knowing what the message is and who the audience is and bringing the two together. And as you've heard me say lots of times with them, what's in it for me with them? If you're going to deliver a presentation to somebody, you need buy-in immediately. You need them to pique that interest, those peaks and valleys, straight in at the top. You are here today because, and we do that with teach and learning. We normally do the summary, the learning aim. So you're here because we're going to do X, Y, Z. And it's kind of what your presentation needs to be. You know, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, they, thems, and all of the other stuff. Make sure you're inclusive to the group, bring everybody in, and then hit them with what it is you're trying to get across those main points. So when it comes to communicating with your audience, a one size does not fit all. Tailoring that message to suit the audience and purpose is essential. Now, obviously, if I was in a boardroom, I may thank the members to be there. I may ensure that everyone's comfortable. We sit all comfortably. Have we all got some water and refreshments? Your slides are in front of you. So I'm kind of being pleasant and formal. If it's a room of students, I normally kind of bit more kickback, bit more relaxed, and go, you know, guys, today, or ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, we're here today to have a discussion about, can we have some examples coming in, to just be mindful about how you're going to get that inclusion piece into to focus everybody. So we're just those peaks and valleys. Giving the presentation to a group of experts in your field. If you are giving a group a presentation within your field to experts, then obviously it's okay to use technical language because they obviously understand it. I may sometimes, if I'm teaching nursing, sometimes I use the Latin terms, or I may use a more technical term, but I will always then go in to explain what that term means. And then I may, obviously, if I'm, you know, giving it to a newbie, I may be going very informal to begin with. So just think about your audience, think about how you're going to tailor that. So using the right medium is obviously crucial. So the right tools and the right resources and the right way. So for example, the communication methods, are you going to do it over email? Are you going to do it face to face? Are you going to do it on Zoom? Are you going to do it? How are you going to deliver this presentation? So for me, very much recording these sessions. The medium is obviously online. I do that because it's more available for everyone. It's more inclusive. People can then just dial in. When we were doing face-to-face classrooms, they became a real barrier because within health and social care, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Trying to get people to attend classes became very problematic and difficult. But ensuring that everybody has inclusion and access, it made sense to have everything online and the lessons recorded, so people are able to dip in and out to meet their needs. So that's our rationale. That's the reason for selecting the right medium. Adapting to cultural differences, we've just spoken about that. So just be mindful, again, about customs, beliefs and values. And again, you know, it's great to address the room as ladies and gentlemen, but make sure you're being inclusive. So for non-binary, or just making sure that your language is inclusive, which can be very difficult in today's society. I understand that, but you know, if you were a person in a minority group or background and sitting there and you felt excluded from the word go, you're going to just quieten down and not want to participate. So again, be mindful about cultures. About some cultures, you know, we're like, yay, this is great. In others, that could be seen as a swear word. So just be mindful about your audience and cultural differences. And if there are cultural differences, try and include that in, so people are aware of why things are being done the way that they're being done. So building that rapport with your audience, it very much is the essence of making people feel comfortable. We've all been in on those presentations where you sit there and the lecturer or the tutor or the presenter just looks at you and you think, oh, you're going to jump on me, you're going to pounce, you're going to ask me a question, you're going to get me up and do some writing, I'm going to have to do some role play. And then you can just see everybody shrinking because they just don't want to participate in that. So it's really important that building that rapport, you spend all of that time building rapport, or in mental health we call it a therapeutic relationship, but you can lose it instantly. So be mindful that we use an inclusive language. Be mindful that we're not indirectly discriminating. Be mindful that people have capabilities and limitations. Be mindful that not everyone are introverts or extroverts. So just be be mindful, you know, when you ask somebody to write on a whiteboard or a blackboard, well, whiteboard, we don't do blackboards, do we? That's showing my age. But when we ask people to write on a flip chart or whatever, be mindful that actually, if they go, oh, no, that's not, you know, I can't do it. Don't make a big deal. Go, that's fine. Don't worry. I understand. Who can have a volunteer, or because sometimes people don't want the handwriting seen, or maybe they're dyslexic and they're not able to perform the task that you're asking them to perform. So just pay particular attention and be mindful of stuff like that. Visual aids are great because visual aids really help getting a point across. So I do lots of different types of videos. I do videos where I've got nothing, it's just me lecturing, and I appreciate that people can switch off to those. Sometimes I do videos with PowerPoint presentations in. That's more for the visual person that likes the speech and the text. So just being aware that we have different learning styles. So everyone learns in a different way. So some of us learn through seeing, some of us learn through hearing, some of us learn through actively doing something, so active participation. So if you're somebody that's throwing lots of numbers out there, a chart or a graph is great, because for something that's more visual, that's going to make more sense to them than you spouting off numbers. So just be mindful that you've got a bit of everything for everyone within your presentation. We already spoken loads throughout the speaking and listening effort about handling questions and feedback. So I'm not going to go over that again. We've done that to death. But just be mindful that you are inclusive, so everybody has an opportunity. And there are online tools now that you can use in meetings where they can download an app, and they can say something and you can see it directly on the screen, or again, in Zoom or chats there. So adapting to different learning styles, we've just spoken about that. So just making sure that you have a bit for everyone. You know, it's not death by PowerPoint, it's not death by you lecturing, but you've got a bit of everything in there. So adapting to those different learning styles, and understanding those different learning styles. And I learned, going back a very long time now, I can't even begin to think how long ago this was. It's when I did my first teacher training. So I'm just looking at the year 2023, 95, I think I did my first trainer qualification. And the one thing that stays with me today is, in an icebreaker, just throw it out there and say to people, look, if you got, I think at the time it was a VCR, that's how old I was then. If you got a VCR, what would you do with it? And they would explain. Now, if you want to bring this into the modern day, I'd go, look, imagine you've got a mobile phone. There it is. Oh, I probably can't see that. Got my mobile phone. What do you do with it? Do you plug and play? Do you just turn it on, play with it? So that's an activist. I mean, that just doesn't really need the theory, doesn't need to understand it. They just chuck it in and do it. Are you a auditory person? Have you got to go onto YouTube and watch something and be told? Are you kinesthetic? Are you got to do a bit of everything? So understanding the learning styles and having an icebreaker that's really quick, you can quickly work out the different learning styles in the room. And therefore, it will help your presentation to no end. Because if you were going to go, you know, let's say I've got a new mobile phone, everyone, what do we do? And everyone puts their hands up and says, oh yeah, we just plug and play. And normally vocational workforce is a plug and play workforce, through my experience. If you've got slides of just lecturing, you're not going to engage them. They're not going to be interested. But what I might do then is I might, to get the same point across, then go to everyone, are we happy for group discussions and group work? I'll throw you the question out. I want you to discuss it. You feed it back. And then we'll just compare the answers. So that the activity type will help your presentation go along a lot way. And what that will do, that will reinforce the learning or your point even quicker. Humour and storytelling is really important through teaching and learning. And, you know, it clearly says it's a powerful tool. It is a powerful tool. Jokes and humour are great, However, be mindful that what you think is funny, others may not. So I do try and steer clear of jokes because it's very subjective, and jokes aren't necessarily inclusive of everyone, unless I knew the audience and I thought, well, okay, that's fine, they're going to get this. But storytelling is absolutely fine, and personal antidotes, so your own personal journeys. So I might talk about a mistake that I've made, and it's kind of funny and whatever, but people will understand the story and they'll connect to you as a human being. So if you are going to do a presentation, people love personal experiences. They love the personal journey, and that will help people connect to you quickly. So don't use a long time doing a story or an antidote, but a very quick, there's this one time I did this and gosh, that was the outcome. Great. Has anyone else got an idea? Has this happened to anyone else? And you can open that up for that human connection. Adapting to different personality types. So understanding personality types in the room can be really useful. When it comes to communicating with different personality types, again, it's not a one size fits all. So we need to kind of understand those introverts and those extroverts. So are you somebody that's quite outgoing and quite spoken, extrovert, or are you an introvert? Are you more of a inwardy kind of, yeah, I'm here, I'm taking it in, I'm listening, I don't need to participate in all the fun, but I'm here? Or are you more like, nah, come on, let's just do this? Because if you force an introvert to do an extrovert thing, they're not going to like you for it. And equally, if you're an extrovert and you are making them do introvert skills and thinking, they're not going to like you for it. So just understanding who those introverts and extroverts are. Extroverts generally engage in the conversation. They provide opportunities to share their thoughts and ideas. So you can see an extrovert quite quickly. They're normally the ones with hands up and they're talking quite quickly. The introverts are the ones that will sit back. They're not going to enjoy being put on the spot. So thinking about that inclusion, what you could do, you could kind of see who they are. If you do some group work, you could put an extrovert in with a group of introverts. The extrovert will try and get everyone to speak. The extrovert will probably be happy to stand up and do the group presentation, but at least that way everyone's had an opportunity to speak. But to communicate effectively with both introverts and extroverts, use a balanced approach, taking into account their needs and preferences, and be aware of your own communication style. So I would say I'm very extroverty. I'll go there. But I can have days where I'm quite introvert as well, where I'm just a bit more like, okay, yeah, I'm going to just, blend in, if you like. Active listening is really important. It's always difficult when doing group presentations to really actively listen, especially if people are quite passionate about subjects. So sometimes what you might need to do in a group presentation, or if you're having a discussion with people, is thank them for their passion, but just rein that in a bit, just so you can kind of understand their main points. If people start to escalate, just try to help them de-escalate, because it's very hard to sometimes to hear people when they're shouting. So again, just think about how you'll manage some of those conflicts there. But to active listening, focus on the speakers, maintain eye contact, avoid interrupting or being judgmental and judging people. Repeat back to people what you've heard. And again, that builds quick rapport. And if you disagree with something, it's okay to somebody say, right, can I just confirm you agreed with this in principle? Is that right? Yeah. All right. Now, if you strongly disagree, rather than saying, well, I disagree with you, you could open that up for discussion in the room. So, right, everyone, we've got one point of view here, which is this person strongly agrees with this situation. Does anybody in the room disagree? Does anybody feel that there may be a different way or a different approach? Does anybody want to have does anyone want to contribute to that? And hopefully some people will put their hands up, and you then got a counterbalance. Because whenever we're having these discussions, we want points of views. We want somebody to create this ability to kind of see the positives and negatives, which kind of goes on to this really, doesn't it? So adapting to different goals, when it comes to adapting to your contributions to suit different goals, it's important to understand the specific objectives that you're trying to achieve. So, for example, if your goal is to persuade the audience, you need to use persuasive language. So persuasive language is trying to compel your audience to support your argument. So on the other hand, if your goal is to inform the audience, you may need to focus on providing clear and concise information. So what we mean by this is, let's just say, I'm going to say, having a cup of coffee is good for you in the morning. So I'm going to persuade you all to believe that. So I might start off with, when I have a coffee in the morning, I have a couple of sips and my brain just comes on fire. And when I have that coffee, it picks my energy levels up. It allows me to focus. It gives me the ability to drive forward. And I have lots of friends that I meet in coffee shops, and we all have a cup of coffee and an extra shot. And that helps us focus and maintain our ability throughout the day. So we're building this really passionate, energetic story about how amazing it is to have coffee. Great. That's a persuasive argument. But if I was going to give you an informative argument, I may say, did you know that coffee stimulates the brain? Did you know that coffee is a diuretic and therefore it does this? So we can use it in another way. And in nursing care or health and social care, we have to be very mindful about persuasion and choice, because I see it all the time. And again, cabin crew do this. Would you like chicken or beef? And they know they haven't got much beef left, so they go, oh, would you like chicken or beef? Oh, chicken or beef? So you can hear them elevating the excitement around chicken, because they've said, oh, would you want chicken or beef? You're like, oh yeah, no, the chicken sounds nice. Because they're using their persuasive language to form your decisions. And again, we do the same in nursing care. Do you want tea or coffee, or we can sway somebody to do what it is we need them to do by using persuasive language. But be mindful that if your role is to give information and not to persuade people, that you need to be non-biased on both sides, so that you're giving equal. So do you want a cup of tea or a cup of coffee? So you're being equal. You're not going, do you want a really nice cup of tea or do you want a cup of coffee? Well, the coffee doesn't sound that nice, but you said I can have a really nice cup of tea. I think I'll have a really nice cup of tea. So just be mindful. Using emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is how you're managing your feelings at the time. So control your adrenaline, control your breathing, try not to race, try not to feel under pressure, recognize your feelings of anxiety, stress, and worry. Take some deep breaths, manage that to bring you down. Recognizing your blind spots, knowing when you're feeling anxious, you can avoid making the audience feel that you're not in control. So it's really important to manage your feelings, manage your anxiety and your stress. And by doing so, you can maintain your peaks, your highs and lows, and you can adjust your tone, and you can manage that. But if you can feel that you're getting more anxious, what will happen is you start to speed up throughout the presentation. As you're speeding up throughout the presentation, then all you're going to do is talk really fast, and then all of a sudden everyone's lost because they don't know what you're saying, because you're talking really fast, because you're worried, you just want to get over and done with, because you can't think of anything worse than doing this presentation. Any questions? Just be mindful. That's me using humour. So just be mindful. We need those peaks and troughs there. Adapting to different timeframes. So adapting to different timeframes is crucial for effective communicating your message. So whether you've just had a few minutes or several hours, it's important to make the most of your time to get your point across. When preparing for a short presentation, focus on your key points and keep your message concise. Use visual aids to kind of inform that or support that, and examples to illustrate your ideas. For longer meetings or presentations, plan out your content, structure your presentation to maintain your audience attention, break up content to make it manageable. So in teaching and learning, we normally say, look, there's a 30-40 minute rule, which is if you've hit that, people go glazed. It's too much information. So think about what you've got to say, be concise with it, and then follow it up with an activity. So follow it up with a discussion or an example or something to help enforce or embed what you've just said. And by doing that, you'll have different styles of delivery within your presentation. If you stick to one monologue, one tone, you're going to disengage people. They're not going to understand what you're saying. So make sure that you've got your peaks and troughs throughout your presentation. Again, use positive language. So reinforce everything with positive language, such as, yes, you can do this. You know, we're all able to achieve our goals, but you know, you want some inspirational talking through this, because inspiring people and using positive language helps them to be more engaged. It lifts up the happy hormones. It makes them a bit more switched on. Their brain's releasing, I think it's a chemical called oxytocin. I'm probably not saying that right, but it's a chemical. I think I want to say it's on the right side of your brain. I'm just thinking. And it's a chemical that makes you feel good. So just by being positive in what you're saying can help lift the mood of a group. If you come across as negative, if you come across as monotone, if you come across as an energy vampire, and what I mean by that is you suck all the joy out the room, nobody's going to listen to you. So just be mindful that you have a bit of joy in what you're saying. Adapt to the different levels of expertise. So understanding the competency framework. So non-expert up to consciously competent experts. And just think about how you're going to adapt your presentation to make sure that it's inclusive of everyone, but you're taking into account the different levels within the room. And in teaching and learning, we can call this differential learning. So we've got people with no experience and people with lots of experience. Now, there's lots of different models around how you can use this. You can break the room up. You can put a more experienced person with a non-experienced group, and hopefully they can share ideas. That's frowned upon in teaching now. We don't do that anymore, because what we tend to do is the person that's there to learn isn't learning because they're teaching the younger groups, or them. When I say younger groups, I mean by age, but the younger in knowledge. And then the people that are in that younger group feel intimidated by the person that knows more. So it kind of backfires a little bit, but it may work within your situation. What we tend to do is when we do the group work, we would separate our groups to the experts and necessarily the non-experts, and we would give them different skills and different tasks to build up their knowledge. So just think about how you're going to adapt and manage those different levels of knowledge within your group. Throughout this presentation and throughout quite a lot of my teaching, I tend to use a lot of metaphors. A lot of mental health is delivered through metaphors, and they're a powerful tool because they help people remember things, but it kind of helps people connect with you as well. And a great metaphor that I was once told was, you know, when people go, oh, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. What a great one that I was told was, sometimes we need to care for the grass under our feet first. So in other words, let's not move to is the grass greener on the other side, but let's just stay here and tend to our patch first. Are we ready to move? Are we making a jump because we need to make a jump, or are we making it hastily? Or if we stood and maintained our grass, would that allow us to be in a much stronger position? So I quite like metaphors, and there's lots of different metaphors that you can use, but try and find the ones that's relevant. In psychotherapy and healthcare, we tend to go, you know, mental health is a journey. We've got a starting destination and end destination, and we want to make sure that we get to the end destination all the time. And that's because we kind of got a thought up here, and that thought has to travel all the way down to the end of the line. And once it gets to the end of the line, then technically that's the journey complete. So you can use whatever you like as your metaphors, but try and add them in. They're interesting. Adapt to the difference in the ages within the room. So if you have different age groups, think about different people's experiences. So the younger generation of learners or people in a room may want to use more technology. Their interests will definitely be very different to the older generations in the room. But if you're trying to get the message across the lifespans, then you need to make sure that you're engaging with those different lifespans so they're able to hear and participate more effectively. Non-verbal communication, we've spoken about this throughout the speaking and listening program. We've talked about 55% through body language. So just be mindful about how you're standing and your facial expressions. Adopting different formats is a crucial way of communicating this effectively with your messages. Whether you're writing reports, whether you're doing an oral presentation, make sure that you've got the information in the right format. So when you look at your writing skills, are you writing it in the most appropriate format? So is it a report? Is it a letter? Is it a memo? Is it, formal, informal? So just think about how you're going to break up that text. So you're going to use headings and subheadings. And then again, within your presentation as well, think about how that's going to flow and the storytelling. Furthermore, throughout, you want to have empathy. I think it's really important as a presenter that we're able to convey to the audience that we've been there, that we feel what they're feeling, that we're experiencing what they're experiencing, or at least that we have some idea. So using empathy helps that listening connection. It helps to bring people on board. So when communicating with your audience, it's important to put yourself in their shoes. And that's why, if I'm doing an informal presentation and students in my group will say, yeah, no, Steve, so we said we can have a little snack or a drink. I know that in health and social care, people are busy. Family life, work-life balance. The only time that you've probably sat down this week is in a training session or in a session for a meeting, and your body just does this. Oh. And now it's going to be really difficult because you've sat down, because you've been on your feet all day. Now you've got to stay actively listening to this presenter, and that can be challenging. So that's why I say to people, look, I know that you all run busy lives. Have a drink in front of you, have a glass of water, have a cup of tea, whatever it is you need to do to be in the room and present with me. Let's do that. If you haven't had your meal, whatever, or something to eat, just as long as you're not crunching, I don't mind you having something to nibble on. That's fine. I don't mind. I know other people do, but I don't mind. So yeah, it's about you understanding. So if somebody's looking tired, try and put a bit more energy into the room. And generally speaking, if I look around the room and I see people tired, I will tend to say to people, right, come guys, let's stand up, let's get these bodies moving, let's get this heart pumping, because if we get the blood circulating around the head again, we can get more engagement. And you can say to people, look, I know you've sat here for a long time, I know you're whatever it is, what can we do? So just use empathy. Adapting to different situations. So again, just know the environment and how you're going to present. If it's online, you've never done that before, learn it. So learn how to do the breakout rooms, learn how to use the whiteboards, learn the features. If you're going to, if you're doing this in a work environment, just know the environment, know where everything should be, know what to do in the case of emergency, and make sure that you have your plan B. It's so important that in any presentation that you do, in any any speaking and listening presentation, that if it goes horribly wrong for you, have a plan B. Because ultimately, let's say the PowerPoint doesn't load up and all of your information is on that PowerPoint, are you not going to deliver it? But having those printouts ready to go, you're there. And it may be the fact that you have to adapt. But just be mindful of different environments. And then finally putting it all together. So in summary, adapting your contributions to suit your audience, purpose and medium is crucial for effective communication. By understanding your audience's needs and intentions, interest levels, personality types and learning styles, you can tailor your message accordingly, choosing the right medium and the visual aids with a splash of humour and storytelling, with some positive, strong body language and some metaphors. You're going to fly along. Active listening, empathy, and emotional intelligence with non-verbal communications are essential skills for adapting to different situations. Remember culture, age groups, expertise, goals, and timeframes. So putting it all together, here are some examples of how you can adapt your contributions if you are giving a formal presentation to an expert audience. Use technical terms and data-driven evidence. If you're having an informal discussion with a group of inventors, allow for pause and reflection, thinking time. If you're communicating online with somebody from a different culture, research their customs and avoid using slangs and idioms or items. Remember, adapting your contributions is not about changing who you are, but rather being flexible and respectful to your audience. Lovely. So, oh no, let's go back one. Bear with me. So, if we look here, we'll just cover this. So 2.9 then looks at adapting your contributions and discussions to suit your audience, purpose and medium. Adapting communication to different audiences. We take into account how the businesses should adapt, communicate depending on audience objectives and channels being used. So 1, know your audience. 2, communicate your objectives. Again, think about crisis management. Think about what to do if it all goes horribly wrong. Communicate through different channels. So think about how you're going to communicate and the different styles of communicating. And then adapt your communication to meet those different needs in age, language, etc. Lovely. And then there's a little book there. So the last slide is then your reading material. So well done for getting through that. I believe we now just have one more session to do, which looks at interject and redirect discussions using appropriate language and register. And then we go into the actual assessment stuff. So one more session. Take care, and I will see you all in session 10.